When someone insults you, disrespects you, manipulates you, or ignores your worth, what do? If you're like most people, you burn. You play it over in your mind again and again. You rehearse what you should have said. You calculate how you'll get back at them. You take the poison, thinking it's medicine. And this is exactly what toxic people want. Because their true weapon is not the insult, it's your reaction. Their real goal is not to destroy your life, it's to distract you from it. And if they can control your mind, they never have to control your body. The Stoics saw this clearly. They believed that the most dangerous enemies were not on battlefields, they were in your thoughts. That the real war is not with others, but with your own impulses. Before you blame them, stop. Before you attack back, wait. Before you explain yourself, ask, what part of me is still untrained? That's where the work begins. Because no one can shake you if you've already confronted the shakeable parts within yourself. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." When a toxic person shows up in your life, they don't destroy your peace. You hand it over, piece by piece, through arguments, through obsession, through emotional spirals that disguise themselves as justice. But here's the Stoic truth. What disturbs you is not the person, it's your judgment about them. You think they shouldn't have said that. You think they should apologize. You think they should respect you the way you respect them. And when they don't, your mind spins. Because you've placed your inner calm in the hands of someone who doesn't even value their own. This is your first lesson. Stop outsourcing your peace. A toxic person has power over you only when they can command your mind. They want to push your buttons. But the Stoic destroys the buttons. He rewires the mind. He trains his emotional responses. He pauses instead of pouncing. He watches instead of reacting. Because every moment of reaction is a moment of possession. You become theirs. Their chaos becomes your rhythm. Their hate becomes your burden. Their confusion becomes your identity. So how do you reclaim yourself? You master what Epictetus called the discipline of assent. You stop blindly believing every thought that appears. You stop accepting every inner command. Just because the thought says, "They disrespected me, now I have to get even," doesn't mean it's true. Just because your body tenses doesn't mean you must strike back. Freedom begins when you choose which thoughts you allow to grow. Toxic people thrive on emotional chaos. But emotional chaos cannot grow where the soil has been hardened by philosophical training. The Stoic doesn't ask, "How can I make them stop?" He asks, "Why do I still need their validation?" That's the deeper cut. Because what we often call toxic is just someone exposing a weakness we haven't healed. Their disrespect wouldn't matter if you weren't still fragile there. Their lies wouldn't affect you if you were rooted in your own truths. Their withdrawal wouldn't collapse you if you were not still dependent on external love. This doesn't mean you deserved it. It means you're being invited to outgrow it. The Stoic doesn't avoid pain. He studies it. He asks, what part of me is still under their influence? And then he reclaims it. One breath at a time, one boundary at a time, one refusal to react at a time. This is what it means to become untouchable. Not because you build walls, but because you built depth. Not because you shout louder, but because you've trained your inner silence to hold power. Toxic people can't shake you when there's nothing loose inside you. They can scream, accuse, ignore, provoke, and still you remain. Not frozen, not numb, but free. And in that freedom, you become something they cannot manipulate. A mind governed by virtue, a soul immune to chaos. A human being no longer reactive but sovereign. That's the beginning. And in the next part, we'll go even deeper into the tactics toxic people use and how the Stoic breaks their pattern without becoming part of their game. The Stoics taught that no insult, no betrayal, no cruelty from another person can wound the rational soul, unless you permit it. This is not a sentimental statement. It is a discipline of perception. Epictetus reminds us that it is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. If someone calls you a coward, that is merely air, a sound vibrating through their throat. If it stirs rage or shame in you, the cause is not their speech, but your assent to the thought that their words define you. In this way, the Stoic confronts the reality of toxic people not with resentment, but with dispassion. He does not ask why the world contains malice, manipulation, or contempt. These are part of nature. He asks instead, why do I still respond as if my peace depends on their character? The world is not obligated to be gentle, and other people are not obligated to spare your feelings. If they act with vice, that is their burden. If you respond with agitation, the burden has now become yours. A toxic person wields no true power. They exploit your unexamined needs. Do you require constant approval? Do you fear rejection? Do you seek justice in every encounter? Then they will find a lever, and they will press it, not because they are strong, but because you have not fortified that part of your soul. The Stoic does not deny that betrayal stings. That slander can damage reputation. That manipulation can disturb a household. But he also knows these belong to the external order, not to the ruling faculty of the soul. And as long as the soul remains governed by reason and aligned with virtue, the man remains untouched, unshaken, undivided. This is why Marcus Aurelius insisted, when you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Not to excuse vice, but to ensure you do not mirror it. Toxic behavior invites imitation. It drags others downward into reaction, into chaos, into defense and vengeance. But the Stoic cannot be lured into imitating what he despises. To respond to cruelty with cruelty is to confess that your virtue was never firmly rooted. Instead, he practices what the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy in the modern sense, but the condition of being unmoved by that which does not belong to the soul. It is a form of ethical clarity, not emotional coldness. You do not respond to insults because you are numb. You refrain because they are beneath the level of your concern. And this is the core. You are not unbothered because you are superior. You are unbothered because you have placed your dignity above your instincts. Toxic people are not a problem to be solved. They are a test not of your cleverness, but of your commitment to virtue. If you say you believe in discipline, now is your chance to prove it. If you claim to value silence, now is the time to hold it. So what does the Stoic do? He observes. He endures. He withholds unnecessary judgment. He speaks only when principle requires it. He walks away not out of pride but out of alignment with a higher standard. To remain in the company of the vicious when they corrupt your reason is not patience, it is neglect of duty to yourself. And yet he does not act in hatred. He does not slander. He does not wish ruin on others. He merely protects his attention as the first line of ethical defense. For where your attention dwells, there your soul is slowly formed. If you dwell on injury, your soul is shaped by grievance. If you dwell on revenge, your soul is shaped by poison. If you dwell on truth, discipline, and clarity, then no matter how loud the voices around you, you remain centered. This is the work, and it is daily. You will be tested again by someone who mocks what you believe, by someone who twists your words, by someone who invites you to stoop to their level. And in that moment you may remember this: they have touched your body but not your reason. They have entered your space but not your soul. They have provoked your instincts but not your higher will, unless you consent. That is the boundary, and no one crosses it without your permission. The Stoic is not immune to injury, nor is he indifferent to injustice. He sees clearly, he understands deeply, but he chooses, always, to respond from alignment, not agitation. There is a time to speak, and a time to remain silent, a time to act, and a time to let things pass untouched. But the Stoic does not allow others to determine when that time has come. He does not borrow his posture from the behavior of the vicious. If someone is cruel, that does not justify cruelty. If someone lies, that does not make honesty optional. If someone withdraws love or respect, it is not a cue for retaliation. To do so is to descend, not in circumstance, but in character. And the character of the Stoic is built upon the refusal to surrender the governance of the soul. Marcus Aurelius asked, "What is your profession?" "To be a good man, not only when it is easy, but when it is tested." To remain unshaken in the presence of toxic people is not to become cold or distant. It is to become clean in your responses. The untrained man clings to every insult as if it must be resolved, defended, or explained. He insists on being heard, on being vindicated. But this insistence is often a symptom, not of strength, but of an identity that is still too dependent on others. And so the Stoic practices a different approach. He withdraws, but not with hatred. He endures, but not with bitterness. He detaches, but not in disdain. His soul remains upright, not because others deserve his best, but because he does not allow himself to offer anything less. You must understand, toxic people do not feed only on attention. They feed on your emotional investment. Anger is fuel. Defensiveness is confirmation. Pain is proof of their influence. But when you begin to master yourself, you deprive them of the very thing they seek, entry into your inner world. This is why the Stoic does not explain himself to those committed to misunderstanding him. He does not offer peace to those who thrive on conflict. He does not beg for fairness from those who have rejected reason. He conserves his energy for the good, for the rational, for the meaningful. And when he must walk away, he does so not in fury, but in fidelity to his own standards. Let others descend into noise. Let others compete in blame. Let others twist words and rewrite events. The Stoic carries no need to be victorious in a game he no longer plays. He is governed by a higher law, not the law of personal vindication, but the law of interior equilibrium. This discipline must not be mistaken for fragility. It is not weakness to remain silent. It is not cowardice to disengage from a toxic spiral. It is not defeat to refrain from defending your honor against those who never honored the truth. Rather, it is the mark of someone who understands your peace is not a prize to be bargained. It is your responsibility to protect. And in protecting it, you do not become less compassionate. You become more useful, more precise, more available to what is just, what is needed, what is yours to influence. To argue endlessly with the irrational is to betray your reason. To fight every insult is to admit the insult had power. To chase validation is to forget that virtue is self-validating. The Stoic carries no debts to the toxic. He owes them no emotional rent, no explanation for his boundaries, no apology for his silence. He owes only this, the refusal to become like them. And in that refusal lies his strength. Because, in the end, the real victory is not silence. The real victory is to walk away unchanged. A Stoic does not aim to be unaffected. He aims to be unmoved in judgment. This is the distinction. The body may flinch, the heart may ache, the blood may rise, but the faculty of reason, if trained, remains in its place. It does not leap forward to condemn, to retaliate, or to beg. This inner stillness is not passive. It is the seat of command. Because the most important faculty, the Stoics believed, was the hegemonikon, the ruling part. It is this which discerns what is true, what is good, what is worthy. And no toxic person, no betrayal, no cruelty can access it without your consent. It is this ruling part that Epictetus guards when he says, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Not because foolishness is desirable, but because your identity must no longer depend on being perceived correctly by others. Most people collapse under toxic influence, not because of the insult, but because they still believe their worth is on trial. They are still trying to prove themselves. They are still awaiting approval. They are still negotiating with those who have shown they cannot perceive clearly. But the Stoic does not build his self-conception in other people's minds. He does not deposit his dignity in external accounts. He knows the one who possesses his judgment truly possesses it, cannot be dragged by public opinion, family tension, false accusations, or character assassination, because his character does not live outside himself. This is not easy. It is not natural. It is not what the world teaches. You are trained from childhood to flinch at criticism, to overcorrect, to explain, to obsess. You are trained to interpret silence as punishment, withdrawal as threat, and rejection as truth. But the Stoic unlearns this. He returns judgment to its proper place. If a man calls him a liar, he does not panic. He simply asks, is it true? If not, then nothing further is required. If so, then let the truth correct him, not anger. If someone mocks his purpose, he does not collapse. He simply continues the work. If someone attempts to manipulate him, he does not rage. He recognizes the game and declines to play it. The modern world equates strength with noise. The Stoic reveals that true strength is the quiet refusal to surrender the inner seat of authority. He may still speak, but not out of panic. He may still walk away, but not out of resentment. He may still set boundaries, but not to punish, only to protect the sanctity of his inner life. Because everything a toxic person seeks, dominance, control, validation, only works if they can move your judgment. If they can make you think as they think, fear as they fear, react as they do. But if your ruling faculty remains still, then you become, as Epictetus wrote, a man to whom nothing can be taken away because he has already chosen what he will never give. Not his reason, not his peace, not his self-respect, and not his soul. So the question is not, how do I defend myself from their words? The question is, why do I still believe my identity depends on their approval? Once you see that it doesn't, the illusion breaks, and you are no longer fighting to protect your image in their mind. You are living in accordance with what is just, what is wise, what is yours to control, and everything else, including their opinion, falls away, because nothing outside of you can disturb what has been anchored within. Now, some exciting news. Our channel now offers a members club. By joining it, you'll unlock exclusive benefits, deeper content dives, and personal insights. Join us on this journey, and let's build a meaningful life together. And I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write "better every day," so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today, and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. Every moment of tension, insult, or manipulation contains within it a hidden invitation, not to respond in kind, but to train. Because, to the Stoic, life is not a series of victories and defeats. It is a series of drills. Drills for perception, drills for patience, drills for restraint, drills for returning to reason even when reason has been mocked, violated, or ignored. And nowhere does this training become more necessary than in the presence of the toxic. They accuse you of what you never said. They twist kindness into weakness. They bait you with silence and then punish you when you speak. They measure their control by your discomfort, and your reactions are their trophies. But the Stoic sees through this. He does not ask whether the offense was fair, but whether he has practiced enough to remain unmoved. He does not ask whether he deserves better treatment, but whether he has built enough strength to offer no fuel in return. Seneca reminds us, it is not that we are given a short life, but that we waste much of it. And what is more wasteful than devoting the mind to someone who has no devotion to truth? Each time you argue with a person committed to misunderstanding you, you delay your own formation. Each time you replay their insults, you halt the refinement of your own speech. Each time you lose sleep over their betrayal, you suspend the very practice that would make you unshakable. So the Stoic reframes the moment. They interrupt. That is your drill in silence. They provoke. That is your drill in patience. They lie. That is your drill in clarity, in not answering every distortion with a defense. They reject your presence. That is your drill in self-sufficiency. This is not detachment for its own sake. This is the ritual of preparation, shaping yourself into someone who meets offense not with retaliation, but with reflection. Because the Stoic knows what offends you today reveals what still owns you. If their insult wounds, perhaps your sense of self was still external. If their silence shatters you, perhaps your peace was still dependent. If their presence corrupts your own behavior, perhaps your character was never fully your own. But this is not cause for shame. It is cause for rehearsal. Rehearse being calm. Rehearse being silent. Rehearse not responding. Rehearse declining the role of victim, even when victimhood is handed to you on a silver plate. This does not mean you accept abuse. It means you no longer allow abuse to define your inner posture. You can walk away without rage. You can set boundaries without performance. You can say nothing and still be acting with the fullest force of philosophy. Because the Stoic is not concerned with being seen as strong. He is concerned with being strong in the one place that cannot be faked, the ruling seat of his mind. And this strength is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not reactive. It is disciplined, practiced, silent. It is invisible to those who expect spectacle, and unshakable in the face of those who demand chaos. So the next time someone tries to shake you, do not ask, why are they like this? Ask instead, how will I use this? And let that moment, like all others, become another step in your training, another chance to rehearse the very character that toxic people will never understand. Because you no longer need to prove that you are calm. You need only to remain so. There is a misconception that to be calm in the presence of injustice is to be naive, that to endure insult without response is to lack dignity, that to feel pain and remain quiet is to be repressed. But this is the voice of the untrained, not of the Stoic. The Stoic does not deny pain. He does not pretend that betrayal does not sting, that disrespect does not disturb, that cruelty does not bruise the soul. He merely refuses to let those experiences govern his character, because to feel something is human. To become it, that is where the error begins. A toxic person may try to inject their chaos into your bloodstream, but you are not required to let it circulate. And here the Stoic returns to his first principle: the only thing that belongs to you is your judgment. Everything else, the insult, the rejection, the passive-aggressive silence, the smear, is external. It may enter the senses, but it does not define the soul unless you invite it in. To remain calm, then, is not to suppress emotion. It is to place it beneath the rule of reason. It doesn't have to upset you. The modern man turns every comment into a crisis. The Stoic lets most things end where they began, outside him. This is not detachment in the cold sense. It is presence, used wisely. The Stoic knows that life offers many invitations to descend, to argue, to retaliate, to perform. But each time he declines, he ascends, not visibly, not theatrically, but silently in the small muscle of his attention, in the steady rhythm of his breath, in the posture of a soul that has ceased to flinch. And in this state, toxic people lose interest. They find no entry point. They push, and the Stoic does not yield. They twist words, and he does not entangle. They disappear in silence, and he does not chase. They return with confusion, and he does not correct them. He has learned to keep his peace private, not secretive, but sacred. That calm, that refusal to perform for those who thrive on conflict is not detachment. It is sovereignty. Because the Stoic no longer reacts as a means of survival. He responds only when virtue demands it. And this is the test: when your peace is no longer conditional on being understood, when your conduct is no longer driven by being admired, when your stability is no longer dependent on external resolution, then you have not merely become calm. You have become untouchable in the only place that matters, the seat of your judgment. And from there you no longer need to avoid toxic people. They will in time remove themselves. Not because you fought them, but because you stopped participating in their script. There is a kind of strength that cannot be borrowed. It is not given by mentors, inherited from family, or granted by reputation. It is forged in silence, in suffering, in reflection. This is the strength of the Stoic, not the strength to dominate others, not the strength to avoid pain, but the strength to remain whole when the world is fragmenting around you. When toxic people come, and they will, they arrive with weapons that require your participation. They need your anger. They need your desperation. They need your explanation, your defensiveness, your loss of stillness. They cannot reach your soul unless you lower it to meet them. But what happens when you do not descend? What happens when you no longer rise to bait? When your boundaries are set without announcement? When your peace does not beg to be understood? When your attention returns not to their provocation, but to your principle? The answer is simple: they lose access. Not because you have hidden yourself, but because you have grown beyond the reach of their tools. They speak, and your mind remains undisturbed. They vanish, and you do not collapse. They provoke, and you watch, but do not follow. They invent a narrative, and you make no deposit in it. This is not coldness. This is clarity. It is a clarity that comes when you stop defending your soul to people who have not defended their own. It is the clarity that comes when you realize you do not owe your explanation to those who never offered their respect. You do not owe your presence to those who abused your attention. You do not owe your correction to those who distorted your meaning. You owe only this, to protect the citadel of your mind. That citadel is not guarded by anger. It is not guarded by eloquence. It is guarded by restraint. Restraint from chasing false peace. Restraint from feeding empty fires. Restraint from building bridges to minds that delight in burning them. This restraint is not weakness. It is what Marcus Aurelius called the impenetrable fortress of the soul, a posture, a stance, an identity. So when someone tests you, and they will, the question is not, how do I win? It is, how do I remain? Remain rational. Remain disciplined. Remain inwardly loyal to the self that philosophy has shaped. You are no longer a child of moods, no longer a servant to insults, no longer a chaser of validation. You are someone who walks away without drama, someone who speaks only when necessity commands, someone who sees clearly and acts only from the unshakable ground of virtue. This is the Stoic's victory, not to be admired, but to be sovereign. Because in the end, the only thing that can truly shake you is your own forgetfulness of who you are. And now, you remember. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.